Avoidants do feel pain after losing the right partner, but they don't know how to show it. Their pain leaks out in subtle, indirect ways. You won't see them cry. You won't hear confessions or long apologies. Instead, you'll notice silence that feels louder than words, actions that seem calm on the surface, but restless underneath. Because for an avoidant, losing the right person doesn't trigger expression, it triggers suppression. They don't process pain the way others do. They manage it, hide it, and bury it under distractions, logic, or emotional distance. But make no mistake, when an avoidant loses someone they genuinely connected with, the impact runs deep. They just show it differently. You see, avoidants spend most of their emotional life trying to avoid vulnerability. So, when they lose the one person who made them feel safe enough to open up, it shakes something in them they don't know how to control. They won't admit it. They won't chase or cry or beg for another chance. But you'll notice it in how they suddenly become more silent than usual, how their routine changes in small, almost invisible ways, because underneath that calm exterior is a mind that's replaying moments, a heart that's struggling to stay detached, and a body that's quietly reacting to loss. It refuses to name, an avoidance. Pain doesn't explode. It leaks in small, unspoken behaviors, in the way they avoid certain songs or keep scrolling when something reminds them of you, in how they suddenly appear colder, not because they've moved on, but because they're fighting the pull to feel again. The truth is, losing the right partner doesn't just hurt them. It confuses them. They built their whole identity on independence, on not needing anyone, and now they're faced with the one truth they've always tried to outrun. That connection does matter. That safety in love was real, and they lost it. This is the pain they never admit. It's quiet, logical, and masked under, "I'm fine," but behind that sentence is a storm of regret, longing, and realization. Because for the first time, they don't just miss a person, they miss peace. The kind of peace that only comes from being emotionally understood. And the irony, the very thing they pushed away, closeness, honesty, emotional presence, is the same thing they now ache for in silence. That's why when an avoidant loses the right partner, they don't move on quickly. They pause, they analyze, they shut down to protect what's left of their ego. But late at night, when no one's watching, that's when it hits. The what ifs, the "I shouldn't have pulled away," the quiet ache of realizing that this time they didn't lose attention, they lost home. So in this video, we'll break down 5 psychological signs that reveal an avoidant is silently in pain after losing the right partner. And if you've ever wondered whether they really cared, you might find your answer here. Sign 1, the sudden over-control. When an avoidant feels loss, their first instinct is to control what they can, because losing you reminds them of how powerless they are over emotions. You'll see them dive into strict routines, new habits, work, or fitness goals. It looks like self-discipline, but it's actually self-protection. They convince themselves they're fine by keeping their days overstructured because stillness means feeling, and feeling means pain. They might say, "I'm focusing on myself now," but what they really mean is, "I can't sit still long enough to face what I lost." Their calm becomes a kind of armor, and their productivity a distraction from grief. You'll notice how they suddenly take control of every little thing: their schedule, their diet, their sleep, their online presence. Every hour must have purpose. Every activity must lead somewhere. It's not growth, it's emotional survival. Because for avoidance, control equals safety. And the moment love slips away, they return to their oldest defense. If I can't control emotions, I'll control everything else. They may start new projects, overcommit to work, or isolate under the label of self-focus. But underneath it all, what they're really doing is running from silence, from memories, from the soft ache that whispers, "You lost something real." What this really means and how you'll see it if you've ever wondered whether your avoidant ex or partner truly feels pain after distance or breakup. This is one of the clearest signs. You'll see them move fast, but emotionally, they're frozen. Their sudden obsession with order isn't healing, it's avoidance. For example, they might start waking up at 5 a.m. every day, hitting the gym, posting discipline stories, talking about grind mode, or they'll become oddly rigid, irritated when plans change, defensive if you ask personal questions, emotionally unavailable, but physically busy. They might even rebrand themselves, a new haircut, a new social circle, maybe even a new philosophy. At first glance, it looks like growth, but if you pay attention, you'll notice something missing. Peace. Their energy feels forced, their smiles mechanical. They're trying to outrun emotion through motion. And here's what most people don't realize. When an avoidant is doing this, they're actually fighting an invisible grief. They don't cry, they compensate, they don't reach out, they restructure, they don't say, I miss you, they say, I'm focusing on my goals. But every silent night, every overscheduled day, every new project that doesn't feel as fulfilling as it should reminds them of what they lost. This is their version of heartbreak, tidy, organized, and emotionally hidden. They don't show it through chaos, they show it through control. And if you ever see that sudden intensity in them after losing you, know that underneath all that focus is pain, trying hard not to look like pain. Sign 2, the indirect reach out. Avoidants rarely reach out directly after a breakup, but their pain finds sneaky ways to reconnect. You'll see them watch your stories, appear on your feed, or drop comments that feel oddly timed. They might not text, but they'll leave digital breadcrumbs. They want to feel your presence again, just not in a way that makes them vulnerable. It's the classic push-pull pattern. I'll let you know I'm still around, but I won't admit that I miss you. They test the emotional waters quietly, hoping you'll do the reaching first. This subtle reappearance is not random. It's their way of saying, I still feel something without saying it out loud. You see, for avoidance, emotional expression feels like exposure. They were conditioned to believe that showing need equals weakness, that it gives the other person power. So when they start missing you, they don't confess. They signal. It's their version of whispering through actions. I'm not ready to talk, but I still care. They might suddenly like an old photo, react to a story, or ask a mutual friend how you've been, all while pretending it's casual. But make no mistake, this isn't coincidence. It's emotional proximity. Their quiet way of saying, I can't fully let go yet, because underneath that calm, distant exterior is confusion. They crave connection, but fear closeness. So they hover close enough to feel your energy, distant enough to stay in control. It's not game playing, it's emotional fear management. They're trying to balance two conflicting needs, the need for space and the need for the one person who felt like home. How you'll notice it and what it really means. If you've ever wondered whether your avoidant ex or partner still feels your absence, this is one of the clearest signs. You'll start noticing little moments that don't add up, moments that feel too timed to be random. For example, you post something meaningful and minutes later they view it. Every single time they send a mistaken message like, oh, meant to send that to someone else, when deep down you know they didn't. They suddenly comment on something small or use humor to reappear after silence. Or they might show up in shared spaces, a mutual group chat, a cafe, or even an event they never used to attend just to see how you react. All of this is their way of testing emotional safety. They're asking, can I still exist in your world without being rejected? And that question comes from pain, not ego. Because the truth is, when an avoidant starts doing this, they're not over you. They're haunted by unfinished emotion, by words they never said and feelings they never processed. Their actions are quiet cries for reassurance that you haven't forgotten them. It's subtle, strategic, and often confusing, but deeply revealing. They might never say, I miss you, yet every small digital move screams it. Every story they view, every coincidental like, every casual check-in is their silent way of staying close enough to what they lost without having to face the fear of being seen in their pain. Sign 3, the emotional shutdown. Once the initial shock hits, avoidants go numb. It's not that they don't care, it's that caring hurts too much. You'll notice emotional flatness, no updates, no visible sadness, almost robotic calm. This emotional shutdown is their version of heartbreak. Inside, they're flooded with regret, but their system can't handle that emotional overload, so they disconnect. They avoid anything that reminds them of you because even a song, a scent, or a memory could break the wall they've built to stay in control. This phase can last weeks or months. It's the part where they tell themselves it's for the best while secretly replaying every moment that proved it wasn't. Avoidants aren't wired to process loss through emotional release where others cry, vent, or seek comfort. They retreat. They shut down communication, close their hearts, and mentally detach from anything that threatens to make them feel too much. It's not coldness, it's emotional survival. They've spent a lifetime believing that emotions equal danger. So, when real pain hits, they don't know how to express it. They minimize it. You'll see them act like nothing happened, staying fine, moving through their day on autopilot. But what's really happening inside is overload. Their mind is racing, their body is tense, and every small reminder of you feels like an emotional landmine. They avoid places you went together, they skip songs you once shared, they delete photos, but secretly save one or two by mistake. And at night, when everything is quiet, they stare at the ceiling, replaying the one thought that never leaves them. I should have tried harder. How you'll recognize it? The hidden signs of pain to the outside world. It looks like indifference. But if you pay attention, you'll notice subtle cracks in their calm. This is where you start seeing the truth beneath the surface. For example, they stop posting or their social media suddenly feels empty. No energy, no spark. If you bump into them, they seem composed but detached, like someone who's there but not really present. Their humor fades, their voice is flat, their eyes look tired, even if they're smiling. Or they fill their schedule with work or social events, not out of joy, but to avoid stillness. And that's the key. Stillness is what they fear most because silence brings reflection, and reflection brings pain. So they move, distract, and detach. Anything to stay away from the emotional truth. What you're seeing isn't strength, it's suppression. That emotional flatline is the avoidance way of saying, I can't afford to feel this right now. But the feelings are there underneath the silence, behind every logical thought, buried under layers of self-control. So if your avoidant partner or ex suddenly seems emotionally distant, unbothered, or too okay, don't mistake it for peace. It's not healing, it's freezing. And the colder they act, the more likely it is that something inside them is burning. Because when an avoidant loses the right partner, their heart doesn't stop feeling. It just stops showing. Sign 4, the sudden nostalgia. As time passes, the suppression starts to crack. You might notice small random things that pull them back towards you. An old photo liked after months, a mutual friend casually mentioned, or a subtle post about missing piece. This is when nostalgia sneaks in. Avoidants live in a quiet contradiction. They avoid closeness, but they crave the safety they once felt with the right partner. So when the world slows down at night, during a drive, or scrolling through old memories, they feel that void again. They don't say it, but their heart whispers, I lost something rare. And it haunts them because they realize that the person they pushed away was actually the one who made them feel seen. What makes this stage powerful is that it's completely unplanned. Avoidants don't choose nostalgia. It finds them. It slips through the cracks in their control. One song, one scent, one casual moment, and suddenly the emotional walls they built start to tremble. Their brain floods with memories of the connection they swore they didn't need. The laughter, the calm silences, the comfort of being understood without words. This is where the avoidant mind turns against itself, because for the first time, they can't use logic to escape the truth. They didn't just lose a person, they lost the feeling of emotional safety. That realization doesn't come with words or tears. It comes in quiet waves of longing that visit when no one's around. They may not reach out, but you'll feel their energy resurface in subtle ways through nostalgia, through traces of your shared world that they suddenly can't ignore anymore. How you'll notice it, the hidden signs of nostalgic pain. When this phase begins, you'll start to see small, almost invisible gestures that reveal emotional stirring. And they'll always come wrapped in subtlety, never direct expression. For example, they might like an old picture of yours from a time when things were good, not by mistake, but as a quiet signal. They may post a story or quote that mirrors your old conversations, something only you would understand. A mutual friend might tell you they asked about you casually, or they suddenly appear more reflective online, talking about growth, peace, or missing the simpler times. These are emotional breadcrumbs, not for attention, but for connection. It's their way of saying, I remember, without exposing their heart. You'll also notice their energy shift in real life. If you cross paths, they linger in conversation longer than before. Their tone softens. They listen more. They may bring up funny old stories to mask the ache of missing what used to be. What's happening inside them is powerful. It's the reawakening of suppressed emotion, because the truth is, avoidants never forget the ones who made them feel emotionally safe. They just realize it too late. So when nostalgia shows up, when they start remembering you through songs, pictures, or moments of stillness, it's not just memory. It's pain wearing the mask of reflection and the quiet irony. They once ran from that closeness to protect themselves, but now it's that very closeness they long for in silence. Sign 5, the late stage realization. Avoidance process love backwards. When they finally start to feel safe again, that's when they allow themselves to feel the loss. In the beginning, they tell themselves it's better this way. They keep busy, distract, detach, almost convincing themselves that they've moved on. But emotional safety for avoidance takes time to rebuild, and once their nervous system calms, once the chaos fades, that's when the emotions they buried finally start to surface. Weeks or even months later, they might reach out, not to rekindle, but to quietly confirm you're still okay. Sometimes they'll send a random message, hope you're doing well. It's not small talk. It's guilt in disguise. They want to feel less like the villain in their own story. You see, avoidants don't usually miss the relationship first. They miss the peace you gave them, the calm they felt when they were with you. And when life starts feeling cold again, they begin to reflect. They remember the moments they took for granted, the warmth they kept at a distance, the times you reached for them and they pushed you away. That's when regret quietly settles in, not in dramatic tears or long apologies, but in silent self-awareness. Because they finally realize that losing the right partner wasn't freedom. It was emptiness dressed as peace. It hits them during still moments, maybe during a long night alone, or when they pass by a place that reminds them of you. It's subtle but piercing. The memory doesn't fade. It deepens because they understand something they never allowed before. You weren't the threat. You were the safe place they didn't know how to stay in. And that's the cruel irony of the avoidant heart. It understands love only when it's gone. How you'll recognize this stage. Real life signs they're feeling the loss. When an avoidant reaches this phase, you'll see changes that feel strangely tender, not dramatic, but sincere in their restraint. Here's how you'll notice. They might send a check-in text. Short but meaningful. Something like, just wanted to see how you've been. It's not random. It's their quiet attempt at reconnection through guilt and curiosity. You'll sense humility in their tone. They won't be defensive anymore. They'll sound softer, almost careful with their words. If you meet in person or talk again, you'll notice them listening more than speaking, almost studying your emotional state. They want reassurance that you're not angry, that you've healed, because that gives them permission to forgive themselves. You may also notice reflective posts or stories, quotes about growth, timing, or losing someone good. They're not for the world, they're for you. This is the phase where they finally feel everything they avoided before. The silence they once used as power now feels heavy. The space they once needed now feels empty. So when you see these subtle signs, the soft reach out, the random memory shared, the tone of quiet reflection, know that they're not just checking in. They're facing the emotional truth they ran from, that you were never the danger. You were the calm after their storms. And losing that peace hurts more than they ever expected. Avoidants don't talk about pain. They live it silently. Their heartbreak isn't loud, but it lingers like background static they can't turn off. They move through life as if nothing's changed, checking boxes, chasing distractions, convincing themselves they've healed. But deep down, there's always that one thought they can't escape. You had something real and you ran from it. That's the weight they carry quietly. Not just the loss of a person, but the loss of the version of themselves that could have learned how to love openly. Because every time they pushed you away, avoided intimacy, or chose distance over vulnerability, they weren't protecting themselves from pain. They were creating it. This is the regret they never admit. Not because they don't feel it, but because feeling it means confronting their own walls. And for an avoidant, that's the scariest thing of all. So if you've ever felt unseen, unvalued, or questioned whether they cared, remember this. They do feel, they do hurt. They just process emotions in a language only silence understands. Their quiet after losing you isn't peace. It's grief disguised as control. And maybe one day they'll look back and finally understand that love was never the threat. It was the safety they weren't ready to receive. So the next time you think they didn't care, think again. They just loved you in the only way they knew how, too late. If this helped you see the avoidance side more clearly, don't forget to like, share, and watch the next.